Can Byron Donalds continue the Republicans' domination of Florida? Welcome to the Gap Village podcast. We are starting a series where we will cover the big candidates and the small candidates who are running for governor, the knowns like Byron Donalds, Jay Collins, maybe even Fishback, and the lesser known candidates like Bobby Williams and others. So, who is Byron Donalds? So Byron Donalds was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1978. He moved to Florida for college, and he became national spotlighted in the mid-2000s when he was elected to congressman in Southwest Florida. Now, what are his big strengths? So his big strength is he was endorsed early and is very well connected with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump basically kind of selected him to be the next governor of Florida. Now, that can be a pro and a con. We'll get to that in a second. So right now we're on the pros list. So he's endorsed by Donald Trump, which has skyrocketed him to the top of the polls immediately. So the other thing is that he's very well connected with the business community. Hence all the money that's flowing into his campaign. Very well connected with AI and finance, as you'll see with his policies. So that is giving him a big monetary boost and continuing his rise in the spotlight. Now, the other thing is that he's really big with the older generations, specifically the retirees who moved to Florida. So they depend a lot on the cable news networks. They depend a lot on the established media. So he is very charismatic in saying the right things to the local media outlets to get the most positive coverage. So that is really his big strengths. Now, his cons, his weaknesses, there are a few. So one of his pros was his connections to AI and to finance. And as I've covered in earlier podcasts, that there is a growing segment of young people who are pushing back against that. And we'll cover that with another candidate in the future. So that makes him struggle with native Floridians, especially in the younger vote. The older generation, depending on the standard, the standard medias, will only see him and see him in a positive view, and the young candidate or the young generations, young voters, will often see other candidates that can gain notoriety through stuff like YouTube or Instagram. So that's where one way he struggles with his AI and his national view of politics as opposed to his regional, which brings me to the next point of not being an executive in any position, right? So he didn't really run a company. He didn't run. This would be his first executive position. He hasn't been president, obviously. So there are many questions on how he would handle gathering a team of people to delegate to, whether his infrastructure plans will relate to Florida, whether his disaster response will be on par for what Florida needs with our constant or seasonal danger of hurricanes and other like events. So those are his big pros and cons. His policies, as I covered, I'm going to do this as nonpartisan as possible. He wants to make Florida the financial capital of the world, and he wants AI to be in Florida. What I think about that, we have just already discussed, and we'll talk about that in later podcasts. But so those are his big pros and cons. His big policies are and lastly, he's looking at building more houses in Florida to reduce the price of housing. Now, whether that is right or wrong, I'll let you decide. So that is the grand view of what Byron Donalds is. Now, can he win? Right now, the polls show him with a slight lead, single digits, so that's slight as far as recent history in Florida is concerned, with Ron DeSantis, who won almost by 20 points in this previous election. So whether he can continue the domination of the Republicans in Florida has yet to be seen, because the general election hasn't yet started. There right now that he's gearing up for the primary, and very very non-aggressive, so to speak. So he's going after the pros, the pro AI, the pro finance, and he doesn't have a candidate to attack or be attacked by, so to speak, in the way of Democrat versus Republican. So whether he can continue his domination really depends on how he handles the youth vote. The older generation and the retirees will vote Republican, as far as we've seen in previous polls. So can he somehow figure out a way to bring a coalition together? Can he pull a Trump-esque view? So now, lastly, I'll say that he really depends on Trump. Whether Trump wins or succeeds nationally, it reflects directly on Byron Donalds. And so whether he can bring those two, the coalition together, and whether he can either distance himself away from Trump and become more anti-establishment, or whether he has to grab onto the populist movement that is Trump, whether he can combine those two like Trump has, remains to be seen. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Tune in for our continuation of our series on the Florida governor candidates.